Kissy goes sometimes. Kissy goes sometimes.
All right.
Kissy goes.
Thank you, Kitsy Ghosts, for that lovely intro. Live playing us in for the 2018 NBA offseason preview show here in beautiful San Luis Obispo. Alex Klepper, Chris Sylvester, also known as your Cal Poly Mustangs broadcasters, doing a little bit of a NBA offseason preview.
Getting back to broadcasting because we have nothing else to do at this point of the year.
We have Giants games to do, but
yes,
it's just one of us.
Giants
games.
With the great John Miller and Dave Fleming and all our friends over there.
Yes. Good friends of the show.
Great
good friends of the broadcast team. Blackfin Scully, hope you're out there listening. Maybe jotting down some notes to bring this to Vegas. Maybe put some bets down on who's going where, because we got the information here.
I mean, maybe.
This is going to be a prediction show and an analysis show. We don't have any actual inside information, but I feel like we can get one or two things right tonight.
I mean, it's so funny how, big sports have gotten on a gambling level. Obviously, the news about a month ago with sports gambling becoming legal in all 50 states, but the odds of where free agents are going to go. I mean, this stuff was unheard of 3-4 years ago. I mean, where was this during LeBron's The Decision in 2010?
Maybe not in the United States, but over in England, they bet on everything there. There was odds for everything. I mean, you look at the prop bets for the Super Bowl, obviously that's a well-known tradition, but they have prop bets for so many different things there, for soccer games and cricket games and rugby games and basketball and politics. I mean, some of the biggest bet things here was the 2016 election here in the United States. So they get on that stuff, but I'm very excited for that kind of wagering potential to become now legal here in the great state of California. Hopefully, California. I heard that they're going to put it on a ballot to be approved by 2020, but I don't know if that's because it's not technically legal. They just lifted the ban on states being able to do it.
Right. If California wants to do it, or if the people of California decide
they better,
I hope so. But we'll see, because it really, not that all that many of our listeners care. Although, if you're listening to sports radio on the internet these days, maybe this may pique your interest. Maybe this may concern you, because of the Supreme Court ruling of sports gambling, sports betting being legal in all 50 states. Let's say that 2020 or whenever it becomes something of fruition. Something that comes to fruition here in California. From a sports media standpoint, that brings in a lot more revenue, I would think, for TV, radio, sports, internet radio, sports, because then all of a sudden we're advertising for all. It's pretty big now with the DraftKings and the Is FanDuel still around, or is it just DraftKings?
No, I think they both have something going on. It's definitely not what it was a few years ago, but they're both treading water.
Right, but I just think that creates so much more revenue for sports radio. Hey, maybe when we're predicting the summer of 2020 or 2021. In the NBA, it'll be presented by your nearby sports book.
Changa, thank you for pitch Changa for putting down a couple G's for this show here, and we're gonna go bet all these odds coming up here in a couple hours. Yeah, no, I mean that's definitely a good point. I think the more money that comes in through sports wagering is just going to help anything in the sports industry. And look at Brent Musburger's Vegas Sports Information Network. I mean, that has become a big thing in Vegas. Both terrestrial radio and internet radio, just 24/7, and a lot of that is based off of gambling odds and sports books paying for stuff. So that's really been a good thing for him in his second, or I guess maybe third career. I don't know. He's pretty old, so he might have had a career before broadcasting. I don't know, but it's worked out well for him. So I'm sure with the proliferation of people being more interested about everything. I mean, you're not going to have as many just localized sports talk shows. You're going to want people. Have people wanting to hear about the Pirates game because they bet on it now, and obviously people do that already, but it's going to be even bigger once it becomes a brick and mortar type thing here in the States. But maybe that's a podcast for a different day.
I think for a different day.
We'll go deeper into that.
A different season. Yes. A different season.
Yes. So now we got NBA in the mind. We got free agency coming up here in just over a week. July 1st is when teams can start doing the wheeling and dealing. LeBron James, I think he's got 4 days to tell the Cavaliers that he's going to opt out. I mean, that's probably what he's going to tell them. And then the real charade and real parade of people coming down and trying to test their luck at the King comes to fruition. But Kawhi Leonard has put his hat in the ring and said, "I want to." Well, he didn't say he wants to leave. He wants to go to L.A. We'll talk about that in a bit. But last night we had the biggest event of the NBA offseason, the NBA draft. Some what a really deep draft class, in my opinion. I mean, there's some guys at the top of the draft, definitely guys like DeAndre Ayton and Luka Doncic, I believe, that are going to be multiple-time All-Stars in the league. And we want to talk about that really quick before we get into the depth of trades and free agency and stuff, because obviously it's a big event, and it's helped shaping what's going to happen throughout the rest of the offseason for these teams. Chris, did you, seeing what happened last night at the draft, was there a team that you highlighted as maybe the winner or one of a couple of winners?
I think it starts at the top. I think you look at the Phoenix Suns. This draft, in comparison to the one we had last year, the talent level, especially in the lottery, much more thin. I mean, you had Donovan Mitchell go 12.
Right, but we didn't know he was going to be that
last
guy,
year.
You know,
we didn't know he was going to be that guy. But and that just shows you the type of talent. I think everybody, for the most part, in that lottery last year, still, a year later, has potential moving forward to be maybe not a star, but at least a productive player in the league. I think we've had a lot of drafts of late that have had things along the lines of, okay, you play for a year, okay, we're labeling you a bust. I think you look at last year, 2017's lottery, and all of those guys, well, I saw things from them in their rookie year that leads me to believe that they're going to be a productive NBA player for 10 to 12 years. I don't know if we're saying that same thing a year from now, but DeAndre Ayton, I mean, from what everybody has said about him, every scout, every analyst, every ex-player, I mean, he's the real deal. I've heard veteran analysts go as far as saying at the beginning of the college basketball season that this guy was a future Hall of Famer. Now, that's ridiculous because you never... Greg Oden, hello.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
they were saying the same thing about him when Portland took him with the number 1 overall pick right before Kevin Durant way back when. But certainly DeAndre Ayton, that was, I think, obviously the right choice to make it number 1. There were other guys that, had some chatter surrounding the number 1 overall draft pick a couple of months ago, but once it was known that Phoenix was getting the pick, they were just going to go right in their backyard and take DeAndre Ayton. And then one of the more embarrassing moments from last night's draft night, I think you know what I'm getting to here, is when Bridges of Villanova was taken by Philadelphia. Obviously, Villanova is in Philadelphia, and he brought his mom on to interview with him, and he said, it's always been a dream of mine to play for the Sixers. This is cool, thinking he was going to go right in his backyard to play his pro ball. And then he was flipped to the Phoenix Suns. And from everything I've heard regarding Bridges, he can step into the league and be an elite defender right away. He can defend 3 different positions. He can shoot from beyond the arc, and he can find ways to penetrate and score at the rim. So I think Phoenix got 2 guys that are going to come in, start from day one, and you can piece that together with some nice young pieces there. Devin Booker is a star in this league, has superstar potential still, I do believe, and you never know. I think Jackson showed some things here in his rookie year. Certainly wasn't ready to take on that high expectation that they had for him last season, but I think he can develop into maybe an all-star type player at some point in his career. I think the Suns are going to be one of the young, exciting teams to watch for years and years to come. I think Sixers 2-3 years ago when we got excited about what we saw this past season. That's what I think Phoenix is going to be 2-3 years from now.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I think DeAndre Ayton was the slam dunk number 1 pick. I mean, the guy who's 7'1", 250 pounds, and be able to move as agile and as fluidly as he does, and pretty good passer, a pretty good ball handler, and just attacks the rim with no abandon, and a pretty good shooter in his own right. The only couple questions that scouts have had is, one, his defensive intensity was not exactly that of some other guys that you want to see. If he's not dogging it in college, but if he's not trying 100% and trying to do things at both ends, what is that going to say for maybe his pro potential? And hey, he could still be a Hall of Famer without being a plus defender, but kind of having that bona fide number one, franchise changing thing. You want a guy who can affect both ends. So it'll be interesting to see whether he kind of improves his effort on that end.
Right. And it's so rare to find a strong two-way player that's one and done these days. I mean, I can't think of the last guy to come out of college after 1 year and everyone screams, well, his defense is great. His defense is just as good as his offense. I just don't think it happens anymore. When you're selecting these 18, 19-year-old kids, that have played, 4 years of high school. They've played that AAU garbage where there's no defense played whatsoever. And heck, depending on where they go to school for, 1 year in college, who knows how much defense is taught there. I mean, look, DeAndre Ayton at Arizona, I still certainly think he can become a plus defender in this league. But you're talking about an Arizona team that got obliterated by Buffalo in the first round of the NCAA tournament. I don't think that so much speaks volume to DeAndre Ayton and what he was and wasn't able to do on the biggest stage. I think it was certainly more of the way that Sean Miller had coached that team heading into the NCAA tournament. Remember all the distractions surrounding the wiring and everything and the NCAA violations that apparently went down a few months prior surrounding DeAndre Ayton. So I think there's a lot to learn on DeAndre Ayton's end. I think defense is certainly going to be one of them. But, I mean, there's no pressure. There's no expectation on Phoenix to be even a playoff team next year. So I think that's a good opportunity for a young player to take his punches as a rookie and hopefully learn how to play some defense, because that'll be vital, especially rim protectors. How rare is a quality defensive rim protector in today's game?
Yeah, I mean, you have guys like Rudy Gobert who really are stars because of their defense, but everything is so offensive oriented. I mean, I think we had the highest scoring year in the league in about 30 years, Adam Silver said last night. So it's definitely a league that is predicated on offense, especially shooting the long ball. So, I mean, yeah, it's not as important maybe as it was in the past when you had a bunch of, all pro centers vying for paint points and stuff. But, having that rim protector, being able to stop guys who are driving to the rim like James Harden and company is going to be important. So we'll see what he does with that. Going to the McCall Bridges fiasco, if you will. The best part of that to me was Waj. Waj is just like an assassin. He's on TV. And he has that kind of deadpan, and he just kind of stares straight ahead. So he goes, "Hey guys, so we have a trade. McCall Bridges, the guy who we interviewed, and his mom, and it was his lifelong dream to play for the 76ers. Well, he's being trained to Phoenix." And he just yeah, he's gone. It's just I was oh man, just Waj bomb. That is the true definition of a Waj bomb, because to kind of pull the rug out from under a guy, and hey, you know what? Playing with the number one overall pick and playing with a team that's got to be in the upside. And you talked about, their young core. I mean, all those guys are in their young 20s still. I mean, that has a great potential to be a breakout team in the West in a couple of years. And I think maybe the expectation this year for them is kind of a Lakers-style leap, maybe in the 30s, getting the wins into the 30s. Yeah. And seeing if the new coach there can inspire some better play from their youngsters. My best team, the team that I thought did the best, at least with what they got, I really liked what Dallas did. Having the number 5 overall pick, trading up to get Luka Doncic, getting Jalen Brunson, who I think is going to be, I mean, just look at the a couple of Villanova point guards right now who are doing big things, and Kyle Lowry. I think he's going to be, he's not going to be a star, but he is going to be a very serviceable player, whether he's going to be a 6-man or a quality starting point guard. They obviously have Dennis Smith Jr., so they don't probably need a starting point guard. But having Dennis Smith Jr. alongside Luka Doncic, who, from everything you've seen, I mean, a guy who is 19 years old, EuroLeague MVP, the youngest ever, and you look at guys, the comparisons to other top European players who were drafted high, like Darko Milicic. Darko was more of, you could see what people wanted to see in his workouts and stuff, but he was not a guy who's dominating Europe. He was not a guy who everyone said, this guy could play in the NBA right now. They would say, oh, well, look at all the potential he has. Look at all the potential skills he has. He's so big, he can handle the ball, he can shoot threes, but maybe hasn't translated into in-game success. Luka Doncic has been able to do that. He's been in the EuroLeague for 4 years or so. And I think what really stands out to me and watching, obviously he's been in the playoffs and they just won the Eurobasket championship. For a guy that's coming into the NBA, is how competitive are they? Are they just kind of proud of like the talents they have and they're able to kind of coast and let other guys take the charge? Or are they in there and wanting to get every single loose ball and wanting to hit every shot and react, maybe not too emotively, but being that guy who understands big moments and is able to step up? And I think Luka Doncic is that type of guy. Obviously, Dallas has had its big success with Europeans in the past, with Dirk Nowitzki now entering his 40s. So a good guy to learn from. So I just thought those two picks alone, I think was big for Dallas. So I think they have a potential star in their hands and a guy who could be the next, a shorter version of Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah, I have to agree. And having Nowitzki as a mentor more than anything. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's not going to give you that type of production to get you back in the Western Conference playoff picture alone like he did for so many years in his prime. But, I mean, who better to have as a mentor than another guy that has a very similar style game? He's also international. It can help him adapt to not only life in the NBA, but life outside of basketball in the United States, where it doesn't get more American than Texas, right?
Right.
So that'll be a fun market, I'm sure, for him to go into. Yeah, I certainly loved what they did. And getting Brunson early in the second round, dude's a winner.
Yes.
Dude's a winner. I mean, he was the commander-in-chief of that Villanova team as they romped through everybody in March Madness this past year. I was frankly surprised he didn't go in the first round. Certainly, size and some of the other things that scouts pointed out, some of the underlying issues that apparently they expect him to have at the NBA level. But to pair him up with Dennis Smith Jr., look, I mean, we're going to get to our free agent predictions, but I think Mark Cuban, a very smart owner, an owner that's won a championship, beat LeBron James in 2011, probably should have had Dwayne Wade the first time in 2006 too, blowing that 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals. I think they're going to surround those young pieces with some savvy veteran pieces, and I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to be a fun team to watch very soon.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and they were obviously down this year, but Rick Carlisle is still an excellent coach, and they do have young pieces now, and they've been able to start building that back up after kind of their extreme long run of success, and maybe if they can get it going quickly, I mean that's kind of what Mark Cuban wants to do. He said he doesn't want to rebuild for too long, but he wanted to kind of jumpstart it last year, and hey, this could be exactly what the doctor ordered.
And on the other side of that trade, Trae Young going to the Atlanta Hawks, they're likely going to unload Dennis Schroeder and let him be the point guard from day one. I'm excited about that.
Yes,
I don't think that Trae Young will have the same ceiling as Luka in the NBA, but I still think Trae Young can be a Steph Curry-esque player. I don't think he's going to be as good as Steph. He's not going to win MVPs like Steph, but he's the type of guy that when he gets hot from beyond the arc, he can hit those ridiculous shots that Steph got so popular on before Golden State became, champions 3 of the last 4 years. I mean, what he showed us at the collegiate level, essentially by himself, he didn't have a real good team around him in Oklahoma. And I'm actually, happy that at the NCAA committee did let them into the round of 68, round of 64, whatever. I think it was nice to see one of the best players in college basketball this past season, if not the best player in college basketball this past season, a chance to perform in front of everybody. And granted, they lost to a really good Rhode Island team. I think everybody saw what Trae Young could do and the type of hot he could get, the type of shooter he is. I mean, it's a shooter's game. It's a shooter's league. I mean, because of the Golden State Warriors, in large part to what they are now, kids are in their backyard trying to be Steph Curry, trying to drain 30-pointer after 30-footer after 30-footer. From beyond the arc. It's not so much about the fundamentals these days, and that's the type of trend that the NBA is headed in. And I think it's going to be a league, by the time Trae Young is in his mid-20s, that is going to be a league that he can succeed in and become a regular all-star year in and year out.
Yeah, and there's just not a lot of guys. When you look at Steph Curry and the abilities he has, he can obviously hit to 30 feet, even further than that. He's the best half-court heaver in NBA history, but he's got handles, he's got good court vision, and all those things kind of play into each other. And I think Trae Young is just the exact same way. He may be an inch or two shorter than Steph, and he may, have to kind of grow into his body more, and he may never be, a physically dominating player. But just having a guy who can stretch the three-point line out to 30 feet, I mean, you've seen what it does for Golden State. And we've had, this talk a few times. Maybe Kevin Durant's the best player overall on Golden State, but I think that Steph Curry is the most important player because of what he does. He warps opposing defenses, and a guy like Trae Young can do exactly that same thing starting from his rookie year. So, yeah, I think Atlanta had a big jump forward. They definitely needed some shooting. They got that. Dennis Schroeder probably going to find a new home this upcoming offseason. So we'll see what Atlanta has going for them. I think they could be a team that is looking at kind of a different style of play and hopefully a playoff berth here in a couple of years. I just wanted to note one thing of the draft before we head on to free agency and trades and stuff. There was a few teams that kind of stuck to the prototype, and there I think 3 teams that highlighted that more than anything. The number one, Utah Jazz picking Grayson Allen. I mean,
you love that. Love that. No, I thought the same thing.
I mean, it's like Matt Harpring all over again. It's just having 20 years of Matt Harpring doing hard fouls and tripping people. Matt Harpring is going to be a Jazz for life. He's still on the broadcast team, and that'll probably happen to Grayson Allen in 20 years. T-Wolves.
I will say this before we move on from Grayson. I think it's going to be a good fit.
No, I agree.
I think that's going to be a good fit. I don't think Grayson Allen's going to be an all-star at any point in his NBA career, but I think he's going to be an annoying defender. I think he's going to be that hustle guy that every good team needs, and that is a small market team that can make a lot of noise if they can keep Mitchell, Gobert, Allen, some of the younger guys together, rotate in veteran pieces year in and year out. I mean, there was an article the other day, not to get too far off the beaten path, but an article the other day surrounding LeBron James and the best free agency decision he'll never make. And that would be going to the Utah Jazz. I mean, could you imagine? I think that'd be a remarkable team, a team that could give Golden State a run for their money. I don't know if they'd knock them off. Maybe there'd be a couple of other pieces that you'd need to add to that roster. But boy, you look at rosters this summer that LeBron can go to with what they have now and be in that finals conversation. Utah is one of a very few, I think, especially in the Western Conference.
Right. And I mean, totally. They only have, even if they renounced everyone, about $11-12 million in cap space, so they would have to make some trades to make that happen.
No, I mean, the best free agency.
Sure.
LeBron would never consider moving his family to Salt Lake City.
Yeah, no, never. That's even.
And I love Salt Lake City.
Maybe behind Sacramento, which is a big words coming from a Sacramento Kings fan who is just depressed about what's been going on. But yeah, I mean, you have a shot blocker and defender extraordinaire and a young gun who can just step up to the plate like LeBron hasn't had since Kyrie, and maybe a guy who does different things than Kyrie. I mean, that would be interesting to see as well, definitely. But yeah, going back to Grayson Allen, I think he is. I mean, for a guy who stayed for 4 years, I think you've got to get that stink on you now. But he's definitely gonna be a solid player in the league. Like you said, he could be a energy guy, a good defender, and who can shoot the three, and he can get up too. I mean, he's had some nice dunks. So Utah, good pick there. Tom Thibodeau and T-Wolves picking Josh Okogie, who just the defender. I mean, the 7-foot wingspan, huge hands. I mean, that is a Tom Thibodeau pick. He may not be able to shoot more than 20% from three, but he is going to defend his ass off, and that's exactly what Tom Thibodeau wants.
That's what that team needs.
Yes, well, definitely. And Tom Thibodeau, he would have 15 of those guys if he could. And then Memphis, getting back to the grinded out style with Javon Carter. I mean, that is the next Tony Allen. He is the next Tony Allen. He's an awesome defender out of West Virginia. I mean, that is just. Maybe Memphis has a few more pieces to add that would make them, back in the playoffs. But that is a guy, getting rid of Tony Allen a couple years ago and the new replacement.
Remember how unhealthy that team was this past year?
Oh, yeah. I'm surprised they brought back Bickerstaff because of that. Because, I mean, they just it doesn't seem like a team that was really clicking on all cylinders and liking each other all that much. He was the interim coach, and they ended up signing him to be the full-term coach after the year. So we'll see what happens. Maybe it's kind of just he didn't piss off Marc Gasol too much, like the previous coach did. It's going to be interesting to see the team dynamic because they still obviously have Mike Conley and Marc Gasol, the two main guys there. Tyreek, who knows what happens with him. But for a team to have such a precipitous fall off so quickly, there's got to be a little bit of trouble in the water.
Yeah, I think you throw Mike Conley back in the mix. Chandler Parsons stealing money.
He has been for years. I never understood that huge contract he got.
I think he'll be moved somewhere this summer.
I mean, they were trying to dangle the number 4 pick just to get out of his contract. I mean, like that's pretty intense. That's pretty intense stuff. To a team that a lot of people are pegging as maybe a team that is going to load up on stars or even superstars this offseason, the Los Angeles Lakers. They have $60 million potentially if they renounce their rights to all the guys that they had in their roster that are no longer there or have team options. You got $60 million to play with, so that would be about 2 max guys in today's NBA. Obviously, there's the hype around LeBron and Kawhi Leonard. LeBron could sign there as a free agent. Kawhi would have to be traded there. The latest intel from around the league is that the Spurs want absolutely nothing to do with trading him to the Lakers. But hey, if they're able to offer the best package, could be something that comes to fruition. What do you see happening with the Lakers this offseason? Do you see them getting any of their prime time, bona fide, superstar prospects, or they kind of have to go for seconds?
I think they'll get a couple of guys, and we'll get into the specifics of that. I wouldn't break up that young core, and getting more than 2 max guys. Julius Randle, who will be a restricted free agent this summer, anybody who signs him to a reasonable offer sheet from what he's actually worth, the Lakers wouldn't be able to match. Now, Randle was very one-dimensional his first couple of years in the league. He could only go left. He could never go right. I mean, he became he put up all-star numbers the final 3 quarters of the season. I mean, he was a spectacular under-the-radar player for them with all the hype around Ingram and Lonzo Ball and Kyle Kuzma. He might have been their best player all around last season. And so the Lakers, who certainly sooner rather than later want to get back to that championship pedigree. Rob Pelinka's there in his second summer. Magic Johnson's there in his second summer with the front office. First things first, you have to unload that horrid Luol Deng contract. And believe me when I say this, Luol Deng can still give a contender some quality minutes off the bench. He's not Chandler Parsons. He's not Joakim Noah.
Right.
Nowhere near worth what he's being paid in that horrendous deal that got Mitch Kupchak out of a job and across the country now in Charlotte. But I think the Lakers they'll get a guy or two. I don't know if it's going to be what everybody is expecting, but certainly I think there are some guys that would like to be in the purple and gold, and the Lakers are finally going to have the money to give it to them.
I mean, the thing I look at when I look at the Lakers, and especially with all this Kawhi Leonard talk, he
Same
wants
thing.
to be, yeah. I mean, both
different guys,
both kind of prima
different
donnas.
guy, different
show
summer.
himself to be. Do you really? Would you rather? I mean, I know the history behind the Lakers and all that, and the majesty, being one of the 2 marquee franchises in the league, along with the Celtics, and being in Los Angeles is cool. But would you look at the rosters and compare the rosters of the Lakers and the Clippers and see who's in charge and see their coaches? And now, I like Luke Walton a lot. I think he's a good coach, maybe just because he has such a cool voice. Like, it just makes him seem like such a better coach. But if you really compare like the key core players, and I know the Lakers are younger, so they have more potential, but if you're looking through these players and looking, one-to-one, would you rather have Lou Williams or Lonzo Ball?
Right. And I don't know. I still think it's too early to make that decision. I think for me, and if I'm Luke Walton and if I'm Rob Pelinka, I don't know how much it bothers me. I mean, would I rather, see what Lonzo can become? Do I really believe in Lonzo to the point where I can just ignore all the hype off the floor with Lonzo Ball and see him becoming an all-star type of player, a Jason Kidd type of facilitator, and a guy that can improve as far as scoring the basketball is concerned? Or is he just going to be, that slightly above average to the point where I don't want to deal with all this stuff off the floor. I can go get a guy like Lou Williams for close to the same money and not have to deal with all the big baller brand distractions and LeVar Ball going on a new TV show on a different station every week talking about how, we're not coaching correctly and we don't know how to run an organization, even though we have 16 NBA championships to show for it. I agree. I think right now, if you were to if I'm looking at winning a championship in 2019, do I want Lonzo Ball or do I want Lou Williams? I want Lou Will. Right. Now, Lou Will's not going anywhere. He just signed that bargain of a deal with the Clippers.
The best contract in the entire league for a team. I mean,
for the Clippers.
Yeah.
And I think, Lou Will right now over Lonzo Ball right now. Who knows?
Right, but
4 or 5 years down the road.
Further. Tobias Harris or Brandon Ingram? I know Brandon Ingram's taken some strides, but Tobias Harris was excellent.
Very underrated player.
For the Clippers.
I'm a big fan of Tobias Harris.
And I know Avery Bradley's going to be a free agent. He didn't really play for them, but
he's restricted, right?
Yeah, you got Pat Beverly. You got Danilo Gallinari, who can still drain some threes, even though he's slower than he was. I mean, you got some good pieces.
The sleeper team of the summer,
right?
You're not even talking about who's behind the command center. Who's pushing those buttons?
The logo.
Who's pushing those buttons?
Exactly.
And as much of a bad rap as Doc Rivers has gotten since taking over in LA, he had to go through the whole Donald Sterling fiasco. He had to go through the ego of Chris Paul, the injuries of Blake Griffin, and obviously the beast that's become the Western Conference. There's a reason why the Clippers have stuck with Doc Rivers as their guy. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NBA, one of the best in-game coaches in the NBA. I don't know how great of a front office mind he is, but he has built a winner before, at least contributed to building a winner before. And I think any big basketball decision is now going to be solely on the logo Jerry West.
Yeah.
So will they show up in my predictions? No, because I don't think that the Clippers are going to have a huge summer. But I thought they had a nice draft last night with those two early teen picks that they had, or maybe a little before that. I think they wound up having 12 and 13.
Yeah,
they traded up to get 11.
Right.
The Alexander kid from Kentucky, who a lot of people are very high on, and Robinson, a good defender out of Boston College. Clippers were right in the thick of things last year. As far as getting into the postseason with a injury-riddled and drama-filled season once again.
Yeah.
Blake Griffin got sent away mid-year, and they still competed until the final week of the regular season. So this is a team that, if they can get a couple of pieces, not necessarily talking about the superstars that are out there this summer, but if they can get a couple of pieces and the Lakers maybe only get one max guy, the Clippers might still be the better of the two in Los Angeles.
Definitely. And I think with the Clippers, you have so many guys who can do certain things so well. You have DeAndre Jordan, who's obviously a free agent, so who knows what happens with him. But he's still a great defender and great rebounder. Avery Bradley, obviously a great defender. And you got guys like Tobias Harris, who can shoot the lights out of the ball and play great on offense. Same with Lou Williams. If you just plug in one guy like a Paul George into that mix, I mean, that is a bona fide, really good team. Whereas the Lakers, you got to have those two stars in there to kind of prop up the rest of the team, and maybe guys develop and they kind of turn into more. But I just see so many guys who have very useful skills that maybe, they're not going to be a number 3 guy on a championship team, but if they're number 5, hey, that's a hell of a team. So, yeah, interesting to see what happens with the LA teams this year. Speaking of the LA teams, a guy who wants to go to LA, apparently, and only LA, Kawhi Leonard. I mean, to me, and I know, he's a better player now, and Dwight has kind of become a laughing stock, but he's gone full Dwight. I mean, he's in a great situation, a guy who has totally kind of ruined, in my opinion, his Q. His Q score for the fans. I don't think they used to see him as this quiet guy who just kind of aw shucks, and he's going to be great in San Antonio, and he's just does his thing and wins Defensive Player of the Year awards and scores 25 points. And now you see he wants out of San Antonio. He wants out of the model franchise for the entire league, and he only wants to go one place. And if he gets traded anywhere else, he'll opt out and go. I mean, with the injury history, just like Dwight had, I mean, this could very well be the beginning of a downfall for Kawhi Leonard.
I just think Kawhi's too talented. I think he's too gifted. I mean, with those giant, enormous hands that he has connected to his long arms, I think defensively, I don't think his defensive prowess is going to go away. I mean, certainly shooting and his offensive game, that could be something mentally that weighs on you and affects your performance on the floor. I still think Kawhi Leonard, wherever he ends up, if he ends up elsewhere, is going to be the same caliber player, but it doesn't make sense to me why you'd want to leave one of the most winningest franchises the NBA has seen over the past 20 years, the best coach in the league,
probably ever,
and a GM that's always going to put a winning product out there. You know, I mean, they were talent-wise nowhere near the top 8 in the Western Conference last season without Kawhi.
Yes.
And they still got into the postseason. Did they make it interesting? Not really, but did you expect them to against Golden State? No.
Right.
With Kawhi, it's a different series. You go back the year before, if he doesn't get hurt in game 1, who knows if Golden State's even there. I think they are. But it's a way better series. I mean, look, the fact that Golden State almost got taken to the Brinks truck by Kawhi Leonard, if he would have stayed healthy, I think that would have gone 6 or 7 games last year.
Yeah.
You add one more piece in San Antonio with how great of a coach that Popovich is and how he has everybody playing 110%. Kawhi's best bet to knock off Golden State is not by teaming up with LeBron James and Paul George in LA, in my opinion. It's staying in San Antonio and seeing if you can lure another star to the Spurs. I think that is the best opportunity to get by this Golden State team. And we don't want to harp on, oh, well, it's all about beating Golden State, but it is.
It is right now.
I mean, think how much heat the Houston Rockets general manager got for saying he was obsessed with beating Golden State. Well, what else are you supposed to be obsessed with?
Right.
When you want to win a championship, you have to get by the dynasty that's become Golden State. They're not disbanding anytime soon.
No.
All of those guys are loving these rings on rings on rings, and they want to add to it. The only way you're going to win a championship is going to be by way of knocking these guys off. And no other roster currently in the NBA, with how it's shaped right now, is in any sort of position to knock off Golden State. But with a little bit of movement this summer, I think that could change. But I think as far as Kawhi's case is concerned, it reminds me so eerily similar of Kyrie Irving. And what's to say that Kawhi doesn't come to his new team and elect for season-ending knee surgery right before the playoffs when he could have had it months before?
Right. And the reason I point out Dwight is, I mean, obviously, one, they both wanted to go to L.A., and it didn't work out for Dwight. Do you know what the year that Dwight Howard won his last Defensive Player of the Year award was? It was 2011. You know, his last year in Orlando? It was 2011. So he was still on top of the world. He was still a guy that you saw, okay, maybe he doesn't have the most refined offensive game, but he is a guy that can anchor any defense. You bring him to L.A., or you got Steve Nash and Kobe Bryant there, it didn't work out. And to think that, let's say, like the pie in the sky, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George, one, who's to even say those guys like each other?
You're playing with 3 small forwards.
Right. Okay, so...
Okay, throw LeBron at the 4, throw
right.
Kawhi at the... Come on. No.
But, I mean, the only reason that the Heatles worked and then the Golden
That's a shooting guard, a small forward, and a power forward.
And they're all best friends. Like, they wanted to play with each other. They did that because they wanted to. If 3 guys were like, hey, I know Kawhi, he's cool and everything, but we don't have this real connection. Like Kevin Durant was good friends with Steph Curry.
KD's not a head case.
Exactly.
KD's not a head case. KD, you knew that transition was going to be smooth because as weird as he is off the floor and as hated as he is by many for making that quote-unquote snake move to Golden State, you just knew that those guys over there were already had a championship under their belt. They were hungry after losing in the finals the season before. You knew that was going to be a smooth transition. You knew that if KD's points per game went down by 5 or 6 just so Steph Curry and Klay Thompson could get theirs, that he wouldn't be affected by it. He wanted to win a ring. LeBron's won 3 rings. I mean, obviously the motivation is to catch Jordan, right, or to get more rings, or to go to 3 different franchises and win 3 sets of championships. I mean, that's got to be the motivation from a basketball standpoint in LeBron's career right now. But what's going to motivate LeBron James if he's next to a Paul George that's underperforming perhaps at times, and a Kawhi Leonard that is just he's not from a marketing standpoint, Kawhi Leonard's not a guy you're going to see in a smoothie commercial on TV. He's a very quiet individual. That's why I find it so odd that he would demand a trade, and specifically to LA. He just doesn't come across as that type of guy. Now that's true. It's true that he's requested a trade, and I'm sure it's true that he's requested one to LA. He's from Southern California originally, but I don't know. I mean, hopefully that from a basketball standpoint, I'd like to see him stay with San Antonio.
Yes.
I hope that Popovich meeting last week sort of had him thinking a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah, and just to put a final cap on that, I mean, people don't like when they perceive you to be someone and then all of a sudden you are actually someone else. And I think what is such a big problem with Kawhi and what he's doing right now, everyone saw him as this quiet guy and humble and, just want to play basketball. And now all of a sudden, he wants to leave Greg Popovich and all the things they've done and all the championship mentality they've built there. He wants to go to L.A. This just doesn't seem like that type of guy. Even if he comes to L.A. and he plays well, I don't think anyone's going to have the same opinion of him as they have had the last few years before this all came out, just because you kind of stabbed us in the back. Same thing happened with KD. Everyone's like, oh, KD, he's going to be great in OKC. He and Rush are going to run the West and all this stuff. And then he just decides to join the Warriors, and it took a lot of people by surprise. And that's why there's all this vitriol. That plus, he joined a 73-win team. But, I mean, Kawhi, I don't think this is going to end well. I think, he may win a championship or two wherever he ends up going if he goes somewhere. But I just don't see from the PR side anyone saying, oh, yeah, get Kawhi all those commercials, because I don't think people are going to like him all that much.
No, and I don't know if they'll necessarily dislike him like they dislike KD now or dislike LeBron when he went on national television and left his team of 8+ years. But I think certainly from a statistic category, he's not going to amass what he would staying in San Antonio. And like you said, from a characteristic standpoint, I think he's that really likable, under the radar, quiet, humble guy. Popovich's boy, makes him likable even if you hate the Spurs. You still like Kawhi Leonard. He's still a likable guy. Finals MVP, knock LeBron out of Miami type of guy. He comes to the Lakers and it's just like, who is this guy?
Right. We thought we knew him, but we don't.
Yeah.
So, and people aren't going to like that. All right, Chris. Well, we went through the big possible trade, but we got some actual free agents who are going to hit the open market. We got LeBron James, we got Paul George, DeAndre Jordan, Chris Paul, Boogie Cousins. I guess you could say Isaiah Thomas is still kind of a big name.
I think fully healthy. Well, his last fully healthy season was 2 years ago, and he was an All-Star.
But
and he led the Celtics to a
like
number one.
Huge asterisk. That's a what people wanted to put on Barry Bonds stats asterisk. I mean, he may never be healthy again. I mean, he's had hip issues. Hip issues are nothing to screw around with. And it's not only that, but it's kind of I don't know why Dwight is such a big topic of conversation for me today, but Dwight Howard keeps moving around teams because guys don't like to play with him. I don't think people like to play with IT. I think that is guys, LeBron could not stand him. I don't think the Lakers liked him. I don't think a lot of guys in Boston liked him. I mean, you're only going to get so much if you are a guy who's us against the world, even against your teammates, because you perceive them as feeling like, oh, he's a sixth man, or, oh, he's like maybe the third piece. He wants to be the guy. And people just look at him and look at his mentality and say, you know what? Unless we're getting him for like a Lou Williams type 3 years, $24 million, he's not worth paying $20 million a year. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get the deal that he'll hope for. I think he'll be one of the final bigger names in free agency to sign, because I think he's going to seek something really big, and he's going to come away with something not so big. Interested to see what market he'll go to. I think he's going to go to a big market wherever he goes, but I think his best role, until he can prove that he's healthy and can be healthy for a sustainable amount of time, I think he's going to be a sixth man coming off the bench.
Yeah. I mean, he was great at that for a few years. I mean, from Sacramento to Phoenix and then to Boston. I mean, he really thrived when he was a guy who could just come off the bench and just score buckets. And when he turned into a guy, I mean, he put up 29 points a game when he was a starter, but I don't know if his offense was really, the team's offense was really that much better for it. I think he's kind of a guy who can just take out of the microwave and put him in there for 25 minutes a game, and he can put up his 20, but he's not going to be a guy who you're looking to be the number one player in your team. LeBron James, this is kind of, we've avoided it for 44 and a half minutes. LeBron James, he has 4 or 5 days to tell the Cleveland Cavaliers that he's probably going to opt out.
He's opting out.
And, even if he opts out, I guess he could still come back to Cleveland. But, I mean, all indications are there's been 2 stories out about LeBron staying in Cleveland. One is his family pretty much has to say, we're staying here. Like, we want to stay here. This is the best thing for our kids. I mean, he's a big family man. Somehow they convince him, or maybe, you know, the combination of these 2 things, they trade for Mr. Kemba Walker, who LeBron is known to be pretty high on, All-Star last year, and coming into his last year of his deal with the Hornets. Do we see, I mean, what would you peg the chances, the percent chance that LeBron plays for Cleveland next year? I mean, I'm going to say like 2% chance.
I actually think it's a little higher. Okay. I think what happened in 2010 was a learning experience for the front office. And granted, Griffin's not there anymore. David Griffin, who was the GM at the time. I think they're going to use 2010 as, okay, that's what not to do when trying to lure this guy back to Cleveland, trying to re-sign this guy. I think if you trade for Kemba Walker and maybe lure a guy like Boogie Cousins to Cleveland, you can build a product around LeBron James, or maybe trade for a guy like Hassan Whiteside and lure in a Paul George, or maybe come up with a package for Kawhi Leonard, which I don't see happening. I don't think Cleveland has the assets that the Spurs would want. Maybe you'd have to pull it off in some sort of 3-team deal. But I think Cleveland still has the mindset of, okay, we're confident we can build something around LeBron. He won the championship for us. He's gotten to the finals ever since he's been back here. They'll have to do a lot of work. They're going to have to shed those horrible contracts, Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith, George Hill, some of the bad contracts on that team that are supposed to be on for next season. But it's interesting. I'd give it about a 25% chance.
Right, but
I just don't see the other I mean, who are the other suitors? The Lakers?
Yeah.
The Rockets?
Yeah. Philly?
Maybe the Sixers?
They're going for it. I think they're going to go for it. I think Dallas tries to shoehorn their way in. I don't think Dallas really has a lot of the pieces that maybe LeBron wants. But, I mean, just those teams you mentioned. I mean, Chicago, look, they don't have anyone. So they have $40 million in cap space. They could offer him a max contract. I don't think he's going to go there unless he's huge on playing with David Nawab, a Cal Poly alum. But I think just having the Lakers and the Rockets, the Sixers, I mean, maybe some other teams who could try to swing a sign and trade. I just think he just looks at the Cavaliers roster. And yes, I mean, they learned their lessons from 2010, but I would say they've tried to better their team and they have totally failed. I mean, I think the Kyrie trade, or at least what they got for Kyrie, killed any chance, or at least any plausible chance, of LeBron coming back. I mean, you look at the salaries they have next year. Kevin Love, not the guy they thought they would be getting at this point in his career. He's 29 years old, and he's a couple of years past his prime. I mean, he's not a guy who's going to be putting up a 22-12 like they hoped he would have. I mean, he's the second best guy on the team, and he averaged 14 points a game in the playoffs. George Hill is making $19 million next year and $18 million the year after that. Who in the hell is going to trade for George Hill? You know, Tristan Thompson is making $35 million in 18 and 19, or 18-19 through to 19-20. No one's going to want to trade for him. J.R. Smith, he's got 2 more years in the books. Jordan Clarkson's got 2 more years. I mean, they don't have anyone even to say, all right, well, you got an expiring contract. We're not really trying to win this year. We'll take on that so we can have a lot of cap space next year. I mean, all their guys, they have 2 more years in their deal, next year and the year after that. So I don't see, there's no way they sign Boogie. I mean, I don't know what, Dell Demps would have to do to say, okay, you know what, sign and trade Boogie Cousins to the Cavaliers. We really are high on George Hill, Jordan Clarkson, and J.R. Smith. We want those guys. It just, I don't see any way that happens. So they shot themselves in the foot. They got back a guy they thought could be a number 2 or number 3 star in Isaiah Thomas, and they went ahead and traded him after about 4 games with the team.
Hindsight's always 20/20. In hindsight,
right? But they totally screwed themselves.
They shouldn't have done all that at the trade deadline. They would have been better off sticking with IT, sticking with Wade, sticking with Jay Crowder.
Right, and they thought someone like Jordan Clarkson could come in there and be like a super 6 man, and he just has regressed in his time in Cleveland.
The most silent, semi-big move of this past NBA season was Derrick Rose was teamed up with LeBron James. I forgot about that.
Right.
I was watching the finals, and I was like, wait, that was this year?
Yeah.
That was like Derek.
I mean,
Derek Rose?
It just seems like...
Did he finish the season on a roster? Was he with the
Yeah,
Wolves?
he was with T-Wolves.
Wolves,
yeah.
okay, I thought so.
Tom Thibodeau, he had to sign his boy back. I mean, he loves Derek Rose. He's probably going to try to get Joakim Noah, too.
That'd be great.
Just
be great for the sport.
Bring the band back together. Hey, they could probably win 45 games and play Joakim 45 minutes a night, just on no knees whatsoever. At this point, you look at the Cavs roster, and it looks like the Brooklyn Nets right before they were about to just free fall. When they had Paul Pierce and KG, and they traded a first round pick for all these guys, and they just went all in for 2 years to have that big team together, and they did pretty much nothing. I mean, if you put LeBron James on that team, they would have won 60 games. LeBron James is what is propping up Cleveland right now, and if he leaves, it's just going to be a complete disaster. Kevin Love cannot carry a team as the number one guy anymore, and they're not going to have any cap space.
I mean, look at K Love when he was in his prime with the Wolves. He still couldn't get them to 40 wins.
I know, but he was a beast. That's the guy they thought they were going to get. They thought he was going to grab 15 rebounds a game and hit some threes, and I mean, he's done that to a light extent.
Yeah, he's become a spot-up shooter.
Exactly. I mean, he needs to be a guy who's hungry for offensive boards. He needs to be like, if he had the offensive board potential like he used to have, or like Tristan Thompson has, he would still be a guy that would make LeBron want to stay. But he's not that guy anymore. Paul George. The latest reports are that it's going to be maybe easier for the Thunder to re-sign him than initial thoughts were. But okay, we talked about, or at least in our preview, our cap rundown, it's one bold offseason prediction that nobody sees coming, and I'm not going to put my money beyond this, but I would do this if I were them. If I am Sam Presti, I either am totally 100% all in, or I just blow it up. If you can't...
Westbrook, too? Get him out of there?
Yes, get him out of there.
Really?
Yes. Westbrook, I mean, he is going to be the player he is.
You're surprised that Billy Donovan still has a job?
I am extremely surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised because of the moves they've made in the last few years. They don't exactly inspire confidence. But if I was running that team, he'd be out. I mean, he is not a good coach. He seems like a wonderful human being. But if you're trying to win championships, make him your assistant coach, your number one assistant. Get someone in there who can make Russ and all those guys gel together. And I know one of the big albatrosses now, Carmelo is going to opt in, but at least he has an expiring contract. Pair Carmelo.
You gotta find a way to get Carmelo out of there.
If they can get someone like Boogie on that team, then yeah, go for it. Get Boogie and Paul George and run it back as with Boogie now being like the third guy or second guy.
Who's going to take that Carmelo deal?
I mean, at least Carmelo, his contract is only this next year. Like the Cavs guys, they got 2 more years. Like no one's going to want to get. There's no cap space at the end of that unless you're planning 2 years ahead. So if Paul George leaves and they don't get another marquee guy, I would say trade Russ for Lonzo and some other picks from the Lakers. Trade him for Markelle Fultz. Something. Trade him to someone who might be able to use the last 2 or 3 years of his super crazy athletic prime, because once his athleticism is not 110% better than anyone else's, he's not going to be the same player. They totally screwed that up. So that's my, not maybe prediction, because I don't think they're smart enough to do that. But if they can't get at least Paul George back and someone else, I think they should trade Russ and just try to build for 4 or 5 years from now again. You got your big offseason prediction? You still kind of turning the wheels in there about that?
Let's get player by player, and maybe it'll come.
Okay. All right. So guy who is already in LA, who may be looking his way out, DeAndre Jordan. Still a very useful player.
You know where I honestly think he goes? Where he was supposed to go last time.
Dallas. Okay.
I think Cuban will get him in a room and say, how'd that work out for you?
Yeah.
With the Clips, huh?
Yeah.
Kind of blew up on you? All right, well, I got some good young pieces. Nerlens Noel wasn't what we thought he would be for this team last year. Let's see if you can be what this team needs. I think he goes to Dallas. He's a Texas guy originally.
Yeah. I mean, if he hasn't burned those bridges, I think that could be a very solid move. But Mark Cuban's
time heals all.
Yeah, Mark, he's just such an emotional guy. I can't see him unless DeAndre comes to him and says, "Hey, let's sit down."
Which I think that's going to happen. I think that's going to happen.
Maybe he's a big fan of Doncic. Maybe he's been just staying up all night watching the EuroLeague.
Doncic films, yeah.
Yeah. I could see that happening. And he's obviously going to be commanding a big salary, and there's not
Where do you have him going?
the best fit for him. Yeah, I mean Dallas works out really well. They're just the teams with a bunch of cap space are not looking for a guy who's on the last couple of years of his prime.
It's a dying breed too. The post up center that doesn't have a jumper.
Right,
dying breed.
And I mean he's an awesome pick and roll guy because
do you think he gets a max deal?
I mean, max deals now is like $35 million, so no. But I mean, even $20 million. There's only
probably get 20.
Seven teams that could have potentially $20 million if they renounce everyone. I don't see Houston needing him. They want to get Clint Capella back, and they want to
remember. Keep in mind, Clint Capella is a restricted free agent, and
right.
Certainly you'd rather have Capella,
definitely,
much younger version of DeAndre Jordan, perhaps.
And speaking of Capella, a guy who's currently on his team, CP3, he's going to be a free agent or could opt out.
I don't see him going anywhere. I don't see him getting closer to a championship than where he is now.
Yeah.
Although
it wouldn't be smart for him, but
there have already been reports
that
he's had some tension with the Rockets trying to discuss a deal.
I mean, I could see that tension between him and James Harden coming from a mile away. I mean, a guy as intense and as just like neurotic as Chris Paul, and a guy who's known to be a little bit less so than James Harden, at least on the defensive end. I did not see those two guys' personality working out super well. It seemed to work. I mean, they were about to bounce Golden State from the playoffs until Chris got hurt. But, I think the best thing for him is to stay with Houston. But, things can happen, and maybe he opts out. And
David Stern ain't around.
David Stern, could say, "Hey, Adam, let's get him back to the Lakers. I want to rewrite some wrongs." I mean, I think he stays with Houston. For Houston, they obviously want to get on one of those big free agent guys, LeBron, or possibly getting the Kawhi sweepstakes, or who knows, maybe Boogie Cousins. Does getting rid of Chris Paul help that at all? I mean, maybe it does.
Injury-prone Chris Paul.
Right, and he's
great player.
33, 34 years old.
Great player, aging, and he is never healthy when they need him to be.
Exactly. He's never been healthy when teams need him throughout his career, and I love Chris Paul. So, yeah, I mean, it would be better for the Rockets probably to
long term
to
but I mean,
try to get someone else.
Windows small in the NBA to compete these days.
Probably the last of like the superstars. Boogie Cousins obviously tore his Achilles. Bummer for me. He's my favorite player in the league, being a big Sacramento Kings fan. I mean, the last thing I saw, the big rumor was that he and Dallas were kind of batting their eyes at each other. I mean, I could see that. I mean, I don't know if I see him and Carlisle maybe being the best of friends, but I mean, Carlisle has kind of gotten to some guys before. I mean, that would be a pretty good situation, being there with some young talent. And, I mean, best thing for him is to stay with New Orleans, but maybe if they want to put up with Boogie anymore.
I mean, if we're going off best fit, I think all my answers are dramatically different. Because I'd slot LeBron James in Utah, which isn't going to happen. But because these are predictions of where we think the player will, suit up for the first time in 2018, 2019, I think Boogie's coming to the Lake Show.
Yeah? That would destroy me. That would destroy my emotions.
I think Boogie's coming to LA.
Yeah, I mean, they got space for two guys to get max, and I mean, Boogie's going to be one of the 5 or 6 guys who could command the max. It turns my stomach. It turns my stomach thinking of Boogie in the purple and gold. But you know what? If he gets paid and he does well, then more power to him. We talked a little about Clint Capella. He's going to be restricted. Julius Randle talked a little about him too. He's going to be restricted free agent. Seems like the Lakers, they might just try to move away from him if they can get some more marquee free agents. Where could Julius Randle line up if he doesn't stay with the Lakers? I mean, look across the teams. I mean, a team like Utah could be good for Julius Randle. I mean, they need Derek Favors is going to be a free agent too, so maybe they don't re-sign him. They got a younger version of that in Julius Randle. Maybe.
I actually
Orlando?
No, Charlotte. His old general manager who picked him.
Yeah.
Mitch Kupchak. Mm-hmm. I think Kupchak, having dumped some salary off the books, and I think he's going to move Kemba Walker. He's going to have money available. And he's going to want to go get a young piece to sort of build around. I think he's going to go get Julius Randle. or at least give him an offer sheet.
Yeah. I mean,
see if the Lakers match
I just don't know. Okay, get Julius Randle in Charlotte. What other pieces there inspire confidence that they're going to be a top team in the East?
Right. It's going to be a money move.
Right.
It's going to be a money move for Randle.
Yeah, it totally could be. I mean, he had a great year. He a lot of guys kind of counted him out. He broke his leg. 2 games? First game in his rookie year, second game in, and kind of slowly progressed. But he's just a beast in the boards and down low. He's a hard guy to contain.
He can facilitate too.
Definitely,
he can facilitate too.
A guy who had a huge bounce back season, Tyreek Evans, was really the catalyst for a worn down Memphis Grizzlies team. You know what? I mean, I could easily see Tyreek with a third go around for the Kings. I mean, they have some cap space. I don't see a lot of teams or a lot of players clamoring to come to Sacramento. They have $25 million in cap space. Hey, Tyreek, if you could keep that going, maybe come back and play with the Fox and a bunch of guys, Marvin Bagley.
It's funny because you're a Kings guy, right? And I'm a
Heat guy.
I'm a Heat guy. I see Tyreek Evans signing with Miami.
Do you really want another guy who has an iffy 3-point shot?
I don't. I'm telling you, I don't think it's the best fit. I'm telling you, this is just my prediction. This is where I think Miami's going to go after a good player that's not going to recommend superstar money and going to just kind of. That's what Miami's going for right now in this period where it's a Golden State driven league. I think Pat Riley's doing one of the smarter things that other GMs aren't doing. He's sort of staying stagnant with mediocre guys, giving Dion Waiters, James Johnson, Kelly Olynyk semi-decent deals to plug up the cap space for now.
Yeah.
And then 3 years from now, when Golden State's likely on the way out of being a dynasty, hopefully for other teams in the NBA, that's when I think all those guys will be off the books, and then he could start how he wants to start. So I think Tyreek would fit that mold. He'd fit right in Miami's 4 or 5 seed once again in the East with Tyreek Evans.
Hassan, do you see Hassan getting traded? I feel like he's getting traded.
Yeah, everybody outside of Pat Riley and the Heat organization has said something or another,
kind of
hinting at his almost inevitable departure. I think in an effort to lure LeBron James back to Cleveland, I think the Cavs are going to wind up with Hassan Whiteside.
Ooh, okay. See, I don't know that just seems like another desperation, like maybe a third guy on a good team type of move that LeBron, he may not be all for, but I don't know. We'll see. All right, we got like 2 minutes left here because I got to start doing the Giants game in 2.5 minutes. Did you think of your big surprising move? Just throw something out there.
My big surprising move is something that everybody else is kind of expect. Everyone's expecting the Lakers to form a super team. Yeah, I think they're getting Boogie. I think that's it. Of the superstars on the market, that's it.
I would not only would I be irate because he's going to my least favorite team in any professional sport, but if I hear LeVar Ball say one bad thing about Boogie when he's in L.A., me and LeVar Ball are going to throw some hands because Boogie Cousins can do no wrong. And if LeVar blames anything on Boogie when he comes there,
3 more things before we get off.
Okay.
Where's LeBron going? Where's George going? What uniform is Kawhi Leonard wearing opening night?
LeBron, I'm going to say LeBron somehow finds his way to Houston. I think Morey flips that somehow, whether he's there with Chris Paul or not.
I think he signs a 1-year deal with the Cavs.
Okay.
1-year deal with the Cavs.
All right. So, he could just opt in then, but
No, he's not going to opt in.
Okay. All right. Paul George, I said Paul George ends up in L.A.
Really? Lakers?
Yeah.
I have him staying in OKC.
Okay. And then Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard is not going to be playing for the Spurs. I think somehow Jerry West, that old devil, talks himself into Kawhi Leonard. He talks Kawhi into the Clippers, and they are the 3 seed out west.
Wow,
with Kawhi Leonard.
Well, you talk about a big prediction. That might be it right there. I think Kawhi's. I think Greg Pop and Kawhi have a nice talk this summer, and they stay together at least one more season
over a nice Pinot.
A nice Pinot.
Yeah,
Grigio.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, that is National Sports Radio?
Sports.
National Sports Radio's
an affiliate of Spreaker.com.
That's right. Spreaker Radio. Everything radio. New tagline for him. All right. Thank you for listening. We've done about an hour here on the NBA off-season preview show.
Rudy Gay to the Raptors.
Yeah, that's not going to go over well. Maybe him and Vince Carter can both go there. All right, Alex Klepper, Chris Sylvester. We'll play out to some Cuddy and Kids See Ghosts. Thanks for listening. Talk to you.
Down the chimney he will come with his great big smile, and you'll find that even the kiddies are swinging in a lady style. Oh, what is Santa bringing? Oh, I'm bringing you presents in a...
It feels so good it should cost. Brought an alligator, I ain't